Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to start doing my summary wrap-up videos that are in addition to what my nightly coverage was. I did summary wrap-ups each night to kind of give you some feedback real time, as close to possible as real time. But now I wanted to give more thorough feedback based on those videos I uploaded and supplement what you heard, because unfortunately, and I titled this video, Any Disappointments from Axpona? I'm disappointed in myself. I used that new mic and didn't realize that the loud volume that a lot of these rooms were playing at was recording clipping. I did get some red meters that I could see. I just didn't think it was going to sound that bad with the clipping that was occurring in some rooms when I did it. And so some rooms, the audio that I uploaded is not representative of what I heard live. It will indirectly kind of show you the problem I mentioned in one of my videos, that the rooms were playing extremely loud and it was even annoying live, but the mic was exaggerating it even more with clipping it was capturing when I'm trying to record. So don't hesitate when I'm flying blind like that uploading. If you're hearing what you think is clipping that is not native to what I'm hearing live, and most of these systems are all great, you're not going to have high levels of distortion. Just give me a comment and let me know, hey, that was recorded too loud. It's coming across with a lot of clipping, and so maybe I can go back in there, ask them to turn it down and re-record. So the only major disappointment is what I did wrong, recording some of that. And so it makes it even more important that I do these videos after to give you commentary of what I heard in the room, to supplement and also counter what may be false impressions from the audio. Luckily, most of the rooms were okay, but there were some that were terrible. In fact, the Ari Sarat, one of my favorite rooms, those 3 tracks had tons of clipping. I was really close. He was playing it loud. I am booked to go see him, though, in California. Check out his 8-system room and hopefully the Ari Sarat again. I'm just perplexed by that speaker still to this day. I'm doing some research even. I think there's some cool things he's doing. That speaker is doing with directivity, different cabinet structure for each type of driver and directivity, and also time alignment. But I'm going to save that all for another video. And also I'm going to do some favorite tracks, and I'm also going to show you my ritual after I come back from shows, how I play some tracks that I heard at the show, and if I heard something that was better at the show than I have at home, then how I go into DSP and kind of tweak mine and try to achieve that same thing, and how successful I am with it. So stay tuned for that video too. But today I did want to cover any rooms that were disappointing, and I gotta say there really wasn't any room that I left that said that was awful. It really was excellent, and really it piggybacks on the Florida show. At Florida, there was only one room that was distortion that I did hear low. It wasn't mic distortion, and I didn't even upload the video. I didn't think it was fair to that, whatever. It was also the first day, and so I think they were working out the issues, or didn't notice yet. But in any case, the quality level at Axpona this year in every room, the floor, there's a ceiling of performance and a floor. The floor of the worst performing was always more than acceptable for the conditions they were in. There are some rooms that I was expecting more of, or I've heard better, and so I'll get to those. But to piggyback on that one room in Florida that I didn't upload the video because it was so bad, the room sounded so bad. They were at Axpona again, and I just passed the room up. I didn't even go into it this time. I just didn't have time, and I figured I didn't even want to venture a waste of that time, potentially. So, but the funny story is, as an aside, is I was downstairs in the common area charging my phone, and we were on a common area, and there was a lady across that was working on the laptop, and we struck up a conversation, and she was talking about how her husband was upstairs. And so I asked, oh, is he an attendee? And what does he have? Is he an audiophile? And she said, no, he's working in a room. And then it eventually came out that he was working in that room that I've been avoiding and heard that it was terrible in Florida. So I can't say if it was terrible in Axpona, but I didn't even go in it. So that's just a funny story and as a side. Now, getting to rooms that weren't disappointments, but I know I've heard them sound better, or I know the potential is there for them to sound better. Let's get one out the way that I'm a little less sure of because I've never heard before, the Bayz Audio Room. So in this case, the expectation I had was super high. Everybody was telling me it's a great speaker, really cool. And the research I had done on it was really, I'm ready to hear this. This is cool. So it's my expectations that just weren't wowed when I heard it. There was nothing bad at all when I heard it in terms of the room and how it made it to the room. Nothing offensive. Didn't leave there saying awful. I just didn't walk away feeling like, oh, I heard something I've never heard before, something unique, which is kind of the expectation that I had. And what I think, and it's the speaker that looks like a chain link of a just links of a chain, and it has like a transmission line, black tube, and then an omnidirectional driver in the middle. Very unique, and science is there that would say it's a viable design. And like I said, it sounded fine. I think the issue here is a more macro issue that I'll talk about in terms of this wasn't their biggest model. And it's a trade-off these companies have to make. Do they bring the model that fits the room the best, or do they bring their true reference product that may be too much for the room and sacrifice some of overloading the room, but at least bring their very best? And so that's a tricky catch-22 that every manufacturer is in. So I'd like to hear their bigger one, because like with a lot of companies, this is the case. I can say YG right off the bat. I'm a super fan of their 2.3 Sonyas and above. If you ask me about their YG Vantage, I'm a little less enthusiastic at that price point and at that level of performance. So there is some trickle down qualities and companies where it works better than others. And so that could be the case with the Bayz, and the people that have been recommending the Bayz may have heard the bigger model in a bigger room and whatnot. Also, there's other variables, like I said, the type of music being played at the time, the volume level, noise floor in the room. There's a lot of variables that can influence your impression when you're in there, not just the gear. But it just didn't blow me away like I mentioned in the preview video that I was anxious to hear. Another one that has this same catch-22, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, was Avantgarde. I think, I'm not a horn guy, and especially not that Oswald Mills audio one that I featured recently, where the honkiness of the horns was much more pronounced and aggravating to me. Avantgarde, and in fact I featured Avantgarde speakers and was wowed by the pair that my friend has in Las Vegas, the guy with the mega house, 3 systems, and he put these Avantgardes first in his office and now in his bedroom, and even in his bedroom sounded phenomenal. None of that honkiness, and I was like, wow, this is some of the best I've heard horns, period. And so Avantgarde, if I had to buy horns, it'd be a tough decision between Acapella and Avantgarde. Acapella with their plasma tweeter, I still remember that room from 20 years ago at Alexis Park at CES. So that's a hard one, and I've already forgot some rooms at Axpona from 3 days ago. So if I remember a room from 20 plus years ago, Acapella plasma tweeter, that's a speaker you want to audition. So if I was forced to buy horns, it would be Avantgarde or Acapella. And I know that they chose to bring their bigger model, the Avantgardes, with even their bass horns, which you rarely see at the show. They rarely bring those. Those things are a beast to set up. And sometimes they even bring a stack of them, an array of them. And I've heard the array with the big Avantgardes in a big room. That's impressive. This was less impressive than I've heard them. And in fact, not bad per se, but nowhere near the level of what you can expect from that system. And in some cases, a detriment to what they're capable of, because you had to sit so close to them, and they only had one couch, one row, and then there was a hard wall right behind you. And so, yeah, that was far from ideal. And so, yeah, am I nixing them on that performance and that quality? Yeah, because I think that could sound a lot better, and I know it could, and I'm sure they would admit it. In fact, if they probably had a dealer that set up those horns like that, and that was how they put it in a dealership and trying to sell it to customers, they'd probably lose the dealership. But this is just a trade-off that every company has to make. Bring their reference stuff so you can at least see it, see the potential, and kind of hear the potential and kind of extrapolate. Okay, I'm having to deal with one row, I'm really close, and try to extrapolate. That's probably the way I would go, because you only get a few chances to get some of these reference products in front of people. But are there trade-offs? If you have to listen in one row super close with a hard wall right behind you, it's not going to sound ideal. Trust me, if you get those Avantgardes in the right room, it's going to sound a lot better than it sounded there. So if you were disappointed in it, don't hold that against Avantgarde. It's just a factor of the trade-offs and the catch-22. And if you did like it, trust me, it sounds a lot better in the ideal room for that size Avantgarde, where the drivers can integrate better and the room is ideal. And to that same end, another brand that it's a common thing I've seen in their rooms over the years is Legacy Audio. Great brand. If I was forced to buy any of those speakers on that row, where it was all mega rooms, all the big size conference rooms, if I was forced to buy any of those speakers, probably it would be Legacy. But if I had to say which one had the most or least impressive sound or wowing sound, it's consistently, when I go into the Legacy rooms, they treat it more as a trade show than a consumer-based show in some respects. They remind me more of a CES display where they bring all of their products, not just selectively, and they set up all three of, there's usually 3 different systems, cat a corner in each room. There's lots of people in there, the noise floor is high, you know, and even though they have DSP, these rooms have ceilings that are tremendously high. There's bleeding noise from the room next door. When they're using DSP, I think this is a case where DSP is being asked to do too much, and it creates some weird things with the algorithm that doesn't come out all that pleasing in some cases. In one cases, I mean, I'll be honest, the worst I've ever heard Timpan Alley, and this is saying something because you hear Timpan Alley all the time, was on a Legacy at Rocky Mountain 2000, I don't know, 17, whatever, in one of these same type room setups, and you could just tell the DSP was doing something wacky. And probably when they took the measurements, there was probably a high noise floor. There's just so many trade-offs in these shows. So when you hear Legacy at a show, always know that when you get their ability to do all the things that they can do, and that's why I would buy them probably among all the other ones, even though the sound at the show in a particular spot may not be optimal, they still have a great technology that in an optimal room, much like the Avantgarde, will sound much, much better. So always think of that when you go into this room, and don't write off the gear just based on what you heard. Plus all the variables that I've mentioned, the song that they're playing, the volume, noise floor, all these other things are constantly factored in. Now, the only thing that kind of borders on disappointing for me for a brand is Gryphon, because I didn't get a chance to hear any music. I really would have loved to hear their speakers, and they brought this massive amp, new amp, Apex amp, probably the most beautiful chassis ever designed. I just loved it. I mean, it was just gorgeous. How they even created a 3-dimensional sculpture style of their emblem, of their logo. Gorgeous. A+ on looks and aesthetics, and it's a very good brand. Top to bottom can do everything. You know, one of the few brands like MBL that can do everything and just does it at a super high level. But it's disappointing that I couldn't hear it. And even though that amp looks amazing and you would be super proud on first blush to have it, there is some trade-offs to having what looks like the best, you know, thing that you could ever own in audio high-end. The more I thought about it, there are some things you have to consider from a practicality standpoint. All these other metrics, other than price, let's pretend, you have to pretend with all my videos here that we have unlimited budget, guys. You know, we're gazillionaires, okay? Or else I wouldn't be able to talk about any of these if we had to rule out on budget. But assuming I've got all the money in the world, I would probably be jumping at a chance to buy that Apex amp on first blush. It looks great. But we have to think of practicality too. And as an audiophile with some common sense and knowing what happens, I'm assuming, again, I didn't talk to him about all the specifics, so I could be wrong in some of these, but assuming it's a Class A amp and 30% of that chassis is heatsink, so, or more. So I'm assuming it's Class A like they always like to do, and that's why they need a lot of heatsink. That thing, and I'm assuming the power rating that I heard it does, it's probably going to need more than even a 20 amp outlet. So probably, maybe they lost a pallet and they didn't have their speakers, so that could be why they didn't demo. But I'm almost speculating the reason they didn't demo is because of two things. Either the hotel couldn't supply the power needed for that amp. When it's a Class A amp, it's basically running at full power all the time, and it either plays music with that power or it dissipates it as heat. And so that amp, with the power it does draw at full power, probably needed more than a 20 amp line that maybe the hotel couldn't even supply them. And so they just decided to do a static display. Or they realized even if they could supply that power, that thing was going to heat whatever room it is, and people are going to go in there sweating bullets, or they were going to have to add extra AC and extra cooling to keep that room from being a furnace. And so when you start putting on your practicality hat, even if you've got an unlimited budget, you better consider these things before you just buy based on looks. What kind of speaker are you using it with? Does it really need that extra power? They have other ones down the line that may be more ideal. And the other thing is it going to create a furnace in your room? And it pretty much is, okay? And so think about this. If you have to, your air condition, turn on your air conditioner and turn it off and get out an SPL meter and see how much of a noise floor your room changes with the AC on or off. Even if you have great ducts that don't rattle and your air conditioning motor is far away from your room, you will still get a noise floor increase. Could be 10, 15 dB difference when your AC is on. And so why would you want a product that's going to increase the noise floor of your room more often, almost perpetually, than not? It doesn't make sense to have your air conditioner having to run full blast all the time. Now you've created a higher noise floor room just for this amp. They would have to be really superior performance for that Class A advantage. And like I said, if I had money, no object, I almost would consider another option. And this is going to be a plus room that I should feature in one of my better rooms. But I'm going to feature it now because I'm talking about Class A amps. This Infigo amp that just came out, I've now encountered it twice in Florida and here, and it was impressive in both instances. And it does have a really cool looks factor, not quite to the level of the Gryphon, but it's got two options for the looks. You can do the acrylic top with see-through and even some LED lights in there, or you could put this very thick, cool top on it. And because it runs Class A, but it's a quasi-Class A that just keeps on, gives enough power to keep the transistors on, not to get into all the technical talk, and I'm not even an expert on that, but he does it in a clever way where the heat sinks are like this thick on the chassis on the side, and I touched it, The Gryphon, you probably could fry an egg on it, I'm assuming, if it's like what I used to have with Class A amps. But that Infigo looks are pretty close to, and very impressive, and you have options, and it's Class A without that extra heat. So that's an intriguing amp that came out, and so I should include that in a future video where I'm talking about best of or cool products from the room, but I thought I would throw it in here as something to counterbalance and weigh. Do I want that super cool Gryphon amp and top notch in every other respect, or are practicality concerns something that I need to think about? I'll leave it for you to judge, but I thought I would give you my thoughts and how I started processing as I went through these rooms. So this is only part one. I got plenty more to come of different rooms, DSP rooms, open baffle rooms, a lot of good stuff to come. So sign up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you back here soon.